Good morning, good morning, good morning. I know I was still muted. Good morning. We are happy to see you here. This is day 14. I am Dr. Helen. I am the host of Where You Are, the Accelerated Healing Detox Bootcamp, and we are on day 14. Can you believe it? Day 14. We have been trudging along. We have day 14 of our Faith Building Bootcamp and our day 14 of our Accelerated Healing Detox Bootcamp. So I don't know where you're joining us. Some people, this may be your first day. Others, it may be your second day. Still others, it might be day 14 for you. So I don't know where you are. But if you're day one, welcome. If you're day two, welcome back. And if you are day 14, look at you because you're still here. We are so excited to present to you some information today that I know is going to be vitally important for you. So if you are interested in learning how to navigate through the grocery store to find out what foods are killing you and the ones that give you life, then you are in the right place. Now, what qualifies me to talk to you about such a thing? Well, I am Dr. Helen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I am a board certified physician. I've been practicing medicine for more than 28 years, and I am trained in both internal medicine and physical medicine and rehabilitation with my fellowship training in non-surgical orthopedics and sports medicine, and then additional training in interventional pain, which is what I did for the last 14 years. But I closed that part of my practice because I realized that there is something happening with our health. And I wasn't helping it in interventional pain, but I decided I needed to do something to stand up to help people to change some things because I noticed that there were so many people with comorbid conditions when I was doing these injections on them and doing these procedures on their backs and their knees and shoulders, and I realized that my steroid injections weren't making them any better. So I decided I'm going to start doing some things. So I strategized and separated folk, and I started treating people more with food and procedures, and then others with just procedures. And I found that the people who incorporated a healthier diet did so much better than the ones who didn't. So that's why I'm here, and that is why I decided to come to you with the information to help you to better your health one day at a time. And we do that right here on Accelerated Healing Detox Bootcamp. Now, let's go through the announcements. Again, we are at day 14, and we are making sure that we are drinking our smoothies. Today, I have the Healing Mango Banana Smoothie. Anybody got it? Healing Mango Banana Smoothie. So we're excited about that, and they're delicious. The mango and the banana, and then the greens. We're packing it in. We are telling you to make sure that you notice that there's like 6 cups of kale, and that 6 cups of kale is just like we're just packing it into our containers, and then we're putting in our fruit. So it's 80% vegetables and about 20% fruit, so that you'll notice they're not too sweet, and we're using only water to make our smoothies. And so you'll notice that there are fewer calories in it, but there's more water because we're looking at flushing with the amount of fiber that we are consuming now. So we're also drinking water between our smoothies. Okay, we're drinking water between our smoothies. And somebody said, I'm still holding on. Yes, that's right. We are still holding on. We are looking forward to what's coming in the future. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But I want to make sure that we are remembering to do our exercises, right? We're getting up off the floor. And once you master getting up off the floor with your hands, do it without your hands. And then after doing it without your hands, I want you to stand on one foot so that you can work on your balance. You can have the wall as some area that you can hold on to in case you need it, but you're going to raise one foot and try to balance on the other. Your foot is going to be kind of going like this, but those are your proprioceptors. They're getting together and they're saying, hey, okay, wait, this is where your balance is. And so we're training that because as we get older, we know that most people die because of a hip fracture, and we're trying to avoid the falls that come along with that hip fracture. So we're working on the lower body strength and we're working on our balance. So practice getting up off the floor, practice your balance, hold one foot and stand and try to get your balance. And then when you really get good at doing it with your eyes open, close your eyes. And that adds an additional challenge on. Close your eyes. And once you get past that, you can do the squats, or you can do squats afterwards, and just work on doing 5 squats first and then kind of build up to 10, however much you can do. And then we'll start going into sets. So you can do that. We're strengthening the lower body for sure, because we want to make sure that we are protecting ourselves against future falls by working on the present. How about that? Now, we are also drinking our waters, as we said, between. We are getting in bed by 10 p.m. I got a message today that says, you know what? I have been sleeping so well, and not having to wake up in the middle of the night at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You're able to sleep through that. That's major. And that comes along with the territory of what we're doing right now. Now, I do have a disclaimer that I have to share with you. Although I am a board certified physician, I am still not your doctor. So you cannot use this information to say that Dr. Helen said anything against what your doctor said. I am giving you this information based on the 28 years of my experience as a practicing physician in both traditional medicine and integrative medicine, because now I integrate traditional medicine with natural medicine, with lifestyle medicine. So I'm using my information that I provide for you is over the 28 years of collecting information and putting it together in such a way that it makes sense to you. This information, this lifestyle that we are embarking on is very, very powerful at lowering your blood sugar levels and your blood pressure levels. So you want to make sure that your provider knows that you are changing the way you're eating, because then they can alter your medications, change them, or remove them as needed. So I am not your doctor. As you can see on this disclaimer, I am not your doctor. We do recommend that you stay in touch with your primary care. Can we have that screen of the disclaimer? There you go. That we want to make sure that you are using your primary care physician to make sure that you stay in contact with them. Our products are based on a long journey, and I just want to be able to share it with you. Now let's get started. Did you know what today is? Today is Martin Luther King's birthday. It sure is. Today is Martin Luther King's birthday. So in paying homage to Martin Luther King, one of his quotes is, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. So we are in a very challenging 40-day detox boot camp, and it's working, and you're standing. So I'm very happy for you. Now, one of my favorite artists is a man named John Stoddard. So I'd like to pay homage to him as well and play a 30-second clip on one of his songs that I want you to hear. Let's run that car.
I could see the wonder in her eyes as she tiptoed to the edge. First time seemed to hold the best surprise. Jumping in was straight ahead. Yeah. She hesitated for one moment.
That is my favorite husband, John Stoddard, and I just love hearing his voice, so I thought I'd share it with you. And we are going to be talking about hidden figures, right? We're continuing on talking about hidden figures that actually damage your health. And today we're going to talk about pesticides. There was a time when when there was a controversy that started about, well, why do I have to buy organic? That's just a fluke. There's nothing to that. Well, I'm going to tell you that that is not a fluke, and that there is something to be said. And prior to 1974, everything we purchased was organic. Let me rephrase that. Everything we purchased was organic because we didn't have this pesticide revolution that just changed everything. And so now we are looking at all of the changes that have been made because of this revolution that included pesticides. So, what are you going to learn during this time? We are going to learn what are pesticides, why they're used, how they affect your health, GMOs, hybrids, and seeds, and we're going to talk about food produce guides. Now, guys, we are not going to be able to cover all of these things today because I am trying to keep our sessions down to less than 30 minutes. And so we're going to break this session up into part one, part two, and part three. And so we're going to be talking about this because I want to make sure that you have the tools to be able to fight when you go into the grocery store. We're going to make sure we're fighting when we go through the market. We're going to make sure we're fighting when we go to restaurants and know what we're doing. We are going to destroy the myth that organic is nothing. Now, it is true that organic costs more because we are living in a capitalist society. So that is indeed the truth. But it is now something that I have invested in over the last 20 years because it is necessary for my health and for that of my family. So I started a long time ago making sure that we purchase things that needed to be purchased organically and the things that can be purchased conventionally. So I'm here to share that information with you. So pesticides are chemicals that kill the pest. They include like insects, rodents, fungi, and any unwanted things like weeds. So they're going to kill the weeds. It's used because they want to regulate the plants somehow. They want to make sure that the plants can lose their leaves at a certain time, or that they develop a certain time, or that things are happening during the process of the growth. They are also used, so they are used as defoliants, so that the leaves fall off of them. They're also used as desiccants to keep the plants dry, and nitrogen stabilizers, so that there's enough nitrogen in the soil to give some nutrition to the plants as they grow. So there are good reasons that they are used, but what we must also remember is that because they are sides, CIDE, they kill, but what do they kill in humans? And that's what we're going to address. Let's look at how they are toxic to the pests. And so you'll see when you don't have them, it is possible that you might have plants that look like this, where the aphids or other pests have gone in and they've eaten through the leaves of your plants. And so you end up having or a loss of them. These are reasons that people use that it is used on such a wide scale. But there are other ways to kill pests besides killing us. All right. And so they are toxic to humans, especially when the levels go up too high. And if you were in our Faith Building Bootcamp this morning, you heard us talk about the fact that little by little, we think that nothing is happening, but these diseases are slowly growing in the background until such a time that it manifests itself. And I've heard patients say, I've never been diabetic, and then all of a sudden I was diabetic, or my blood pressure has never been high, and then all of a sudden my blood pressure was high. No, that's not what happened. It has been going higher and higher. The scene was set up down below where we didn't see it. It was under the surface, and it was starting to make these changes to the DNA of every cell in your body, changing the DNA so so that it can develop blood pressure issues, so that you can develop blood sugar issues, so that you can develop high cholesterol or those autoimmune diseases, hypothyroidism and lupus and all the other things that are related to inflammation. These are inflammatory conditions. So it would stand to reason that if we can decrease the inflammation, then we can decrease the risk of developing or keeping the diseases. There are certain pesticides that have actually been banned in the United States, and that one is DDT. This is dichloro diphenyl trichloroethane. This is a chemical that was banned, but it still remains in the soil and it stays there for many years like a forever chemical. And then there's another one called lindane that is used in insecticides for like the hardwood logs and lumber and crops. This one has also been banned, and that was DDT was banned in like 1972, but there are some countries outside of the US that still use it, particularly companies or countries that are trying to control mosquitoes because they're trying to control malaria. So these chemicals can actually exist a long time in the environment and in animal tissues. Lindane actually ended in 2007, and so that one has been banned since that, but the pharmaceutical use stayed in use until 2015. Okay, these are pharmaceutical uses, stayed until 2015. Isn't that quite amazing? But one that I want to talk about in particular is something called glyphosate. And glyphosate is what you see in a Roundup. That's your weed killer. And when you see people using Roundup or you see them using any of these chemicals, they're all covered up and they got masks and all those kinds of things on. And they'll tell you, until it settles, don't come around until it settles. You have to be careful about your pets because they'll eat those things, and pets are not able to detox like we as humans are. So they are definitely more susceptible when they go around the ground and they eat these kinds of things up. These are problematics. These are things that are problematic to them. Certain classes of pesticides will determine kind of what kinds of symptoms they will come up with. So when we look at these pesticides, there is a risk to human health, but this is said by the EPA that there is no risk. They said that it's not carcinogenic. Okay, so the EPA says that it's not carcinogenic, but the World Health Organization, which I love, said in 2015, as we advance the slide, in 2015, that that they are classified as carcinogenic. These are herbicides. These glyphosates are herbicides because they kill the weeds. And EPA and the WHO are just not on the same page as to whether it is carcinogenic or not carcinogenic. What's even interesting to me is that when you look at oats, which we know we've often advertised oats as heart healthy. And it is interesting that when we use glyphosate to kill the weeds, it actually damages the oats. Isn't that sad, right? I know clutch the pearls, somebody, because I'm eating oatmeal because the oatmeal is supposed to help me for my heart. But get this, there is something called the beta glucans, and those beta glucans are actually developing in the plant, and these are cholesterol lowering parts, the fiber part of the plant. It actually starts to develop right when the plant ripens. And so when it ripens naturally, you will have the amount of beta glucan in it that your body needs to keep your cholesterol lowered and to work as a good fiber for your system. But when you use these products on it, these pesticides, it actually, remember we talked about how they help with the plant to ripen faster and all of those different kinds of things. It ripens the oat plants too fast, and so you get less beta glucan, so they are less likely to lower your cholesterol level, which is again clutch the pearls. And so you'll see that companies are now having to be very specific. As a matter of fact, General Mills had to drop the name 100% natural because there were traces of glyphosate found in the oats. And so we have to be very careful when we talk about these different beta glucans and all of those things. So how are we supposed to find out things about these are really important, because now we're looking at the glyphosate being used worldwide, really being used worldwide. And what's interesting is that now there are countries who say, you know what, we are not going to use any glyphosate anymore. Many countries have banned it from their countries. For instance, if you go to Dubai, you will not find any glyphosate in there. You won't find it in Kuwait. You won't find it in Saudi Arabia. And as a matter of fact, France is actually now banning it. I think since this should be completely banned by this year. There are other countries like El Salvador that doesn't allow it. Vietnam, the only country in all of Asia that will not allow glyphosate in their country, in their territory. So it is interesting that many people are finding out that there is something wrong with using the glyphosate. And not only does the glyphosate cause problems in humans, but it's also been responsible, as studies are showing, that it is actually changing the biodiversity of the soil. That's where probiotics are supposed to come from. I don't I don't know if we want to clap on that, because it has changed that biodiversity. You want the biodiversity to happen in there because it is what keeps the food and the soil healthy, and it's changed the soil for many of the growers. And so Grain Millers, which is the largest company that buys oats in Western Canada, they decided to stop buying oats treated with glyphosate because they couldn't actually say that it was heart healthy. And so we want to be able to use our oats as heart healthy. And a resource that I want you to write down, because remember I tell you to bring your pen and paper, write this down. EWG.org. It's called EWG.org. EWG.org is Environmental Work Group. And they are really the ones that do the research to figure out what's going on with our food supply, so they can keep the food supply safe. They only live on contributions from the public. They are not funded by any entity. So they are very objective in their work, figuring what to do about these different things. And so they have sampled 45 different oat samples and found that glyphosate was in 43 of the 45 samples made. Isn't that crazy? 43 out of the 45 samples, the companies that were saying this is heart healthy, they found glyphosate in it. So again, that's why these labels have to change, because they cannot say that it is. Now, what are some of the health concerns that we are experiencing with glyphosate? Well, we look at some of the acute symptoms. Some of the acute health symptoms are things like stinging eyes, like your eyes might burn, and the irritation might happen in your nose or throat. You might see skin rashes. Some people have asthma, and if you have asthma already, it is definitely exacerbated because of the glyphosate on the food. There are people with blisters on their skin, blindness. People are like, I don't know why I'm nauseated. When I eat this certain thing, I get nauseated. So you think I'm eating this thing that's good for me, like I'm eating a tomato, but every time I eat tomatoes, I get nauseated. Well, it's not the tomato per se, though it could be, and we'll talk about that later. It is not the tomato per se, it is the pesticides on the tomato that's making you feel nauseated. There are some that cause dizziness and diarrhea, and even some of the acute symptoms are even death if the accumulation of it is too much. Okay, so it is an acute symptom that can happen. Now, what's interesting is that infants and children are more susceptible to than adults to these immune changes that they're not really able to detoxify like adults can because their systems are just developing. So they will breathe in more pesticides and they can't get rid of them, and they breathe in more of them because their respiratory rates, if you look at a child and you look at you, they're typically breathing faster than you, so they're breathing in more of these pesticides than you are. So they're breathing, every time they breathe in, they're breathing in more of the pesticides. They also play on playgrounds where pesticides might be in some of the areas that they're playing in, on the grass and things of that nature. And they put their hands in their mouths. I mean, they're just kids. And so they're going to have a bigger problem with it. The other people that are more susceptible to it are farm workers and people that actually apply the pesticides because they have a greater amount of exposure. And what's interesting is that the chronic effects, like we talked about this morning in our Faith Building Bootcamp, and that we talked about a little bit earlier here, is that something's happening in the underlying parts that are going on. And so the chronic effects may not appear for weeks, months, or even years. So that you may find it difficult to even link it to the fact that you had all this pesticide exposure, because that's not the first thing that we look for. I have been practicing medicine for more than 28 years, and I can tell you, in traditional medicine, when you come in with a symptom, our goal is not to find out where it came from. Our goal is to treat your symptom. And so that's where I have decided to make some changes in my life so that I can get to where it's come from, so that we can get rid of the symptoms naturally if we get to the root cause of the problem. And then one of the biggest chronic issues that occurs is cancers, and that's leukemia, lymphoma. It will actually affect the brain, the breast, it'll affect the prostate, the testes, and the ovaries. And it can also cause reproductive problems. And these reproductive problems can cause stillbirths, spontaneous abortions. It can actually cause sterility, and it can cause infertility. And as you look at the next slide, look at some of the reproductive issues that can occur because of the pesticides. You can get kids can have shortened limbs or cleft palates and different birth defects that occur because of that. And so when we talk about some of the symptoms of of having glyphosate, even aside from the cancer, we can look at other symptoms that may occur that include headache and dizziness. But I put this slide up because I want you to see, like, excessive salivation and tremors are also a problem with confusion and muscle pain, even diarrhea, and then chest pain. Like, we come into the hospital complaining of chest pain, and did you know it could be due to these particular pesticides? So why is it important to buy organic? There is a reason to purchase things organically. Now, I am going to stop here, and tomorrow we're gonna pick up on some other health issues that these pesticides can cause because of the issues of the pesticides and how they occur. For right now, I would like for you to put your questions in the chat, and if you have a question, I would like for you to label your question Q colon, so that we know that that is indeed a question. So Q colon, and we can address your colon. Okay, so I'll give you a few seconds to put your questions in the chat. Some of you may have already asked it. I have not been able to see them if they are not labeled Q colon. All right, Q colon, just to label your question. Well, I don't see any questions, but I do see a comment, and I agree with this comment. I find organic foods taste better. I have always been taught to put the best in my body, right? This temple of God. I agree. So what's interesting, guys, is that I was in graduate school, I was working on my master's degree at the time. And I would always make my food and bring it for lunch because I realized that there was not a lot of food that was really conducive to the way I wanted to eat. So I brought my food, and I was a poor student too, so I was also saving money. And so I would make my food, and people were always interested to see, what is she eating? What is she eating? And I remember one of the in the office, actually this was when I was working on my fellowship. She one of the medical assistants said, "What are you eating?" And I told her, I said, "Oh, I got some organic, whatever it was I was eating." She said, "Organic? Ew." And I had to tell her, I said, pesticides don't add any extra flavor to the food. Like, they actually take away the flavor of the food. So she was just not aware. She in her mind, and back then, that was what, in 2001, that was over 20 years ago. Her thought was that organic meant that there was something wrong with the taste of the food. But I assure you that buying organic foods when necessary actually helps to actually appreciate the real flavor of the food. And so that is actually true. Okay, so I see a couple of questions. When talked about the exercise, what if you have knee problems? Well, if you have knee problems, yesterday we showed a video on how to get up off the floor if you have knee problems. So I want you to look at yesterday's video so that you can see how to practice getting up off of the floor when you have knee issues. What's also interesting is that as we continue, I know you may be just starting in our detox. As you continue, you will notice that you'll have less pain in your knees because you'll have less inflammation in your body, and you'll be able to do things more easily than you were able to do them before. Do I have to drink all 96 ounces? I have been falling short. Listen, these are meant to give you satiety. It's meant to make sure that you are not hungry, because when you're hungry, you tend to pick up the wrong thing. So we have 32 ounces 3 times a day, and if you only drink 2, that is perfectly fine. You are still getting more fruits and more vegetables than the vast majority of America. So you are doing well. So you are still decreasing your inflammatory response, and you're still doing well, and you're getting all the antioxidants, you're getting chlorophyll, you're getting carotenoids, you're getting all of these wonderful phytonutrients, the lutein and zeaxanthin, and all of these wonderful antioxidants that are targeted to systems to make your body recover from or to decrease diseases that occur in our bodies. Is it possible to have organic produce that is seedless? That is excellent question. An excellent question, because you will see grapes in the store that are like green grapes, and they call them organic, but there are no seeds in them. That grape has been modified to grow without seeds. So by definition, that is not organic. What it means is that these are altered grapes that are grown without pesticides. So it is absolutely possible to find organic foods that are not organically made. They are only organically grown. Okay, so that just means it's grown without pesticides. EWG.org is the site, the environmental work group. That is the site that keeps count on how many pesticides are being used, what pesticides are being used, how are they safe or are they unsafe. And so I'm always searching on EWG.org to look for clean makeup, clean deodorants, clean, you name it, clean cleaning supplies, you name it. They have investigated to find out what these things are. And so we are going through and using EWG.org. So that's how I know what makeup that I'm going to purchase. That's how I know what lotion I'm going to put on. That's how I know what body oil to use, and what deodorant to buy. That was my original source before I started making my own products. So it is a very helpful site. Well, look at that. Somebody said Bridget said my vegetarian chili won second prize over 15 flesh-based ones when I worked with the state of New Jersey. What is that? Absolutely spectacular. Because, because we are eating more healthfully, it doesn't mean we have to sacrifice taste, right? And my motto, my mantra is you do not have to sacrifice taste for your health. You can still eat healthy and deliciously. I mean, like the two are not exclusive. So I'm so glad that you guys are here because we are like-minded. We are going to, what you should know now is that what pesticides are, why they're used, and how it affects your health. And we're going to talk more tomorrow about the GMOs and hybrids and the seeds and why those things are important. We're going to talk about why I would avoid some organic products. We're going to talk about produce that we can possibly look at. Those are coming up in part 2 and part 3. Right now we are just 6 minutes over, so much better than we have been doing. My goal is to make sure that we stay here on time. Remember, your smoothies are 80% veggies and 20% fruit. You're using your smoothies are water-based. You're going to add, oh, I meant to tell you to add, when we talked about yesterday, when we talked about if you want to make your own deodorant, you can use it with lemon and baking soda and put some coconut oil with it. And that will also help to protect you, to neutralize your deodorant concoction a little bit better. You can try it. It works for some people. Some people it may not work for, but if you're trying everybody else's, you may as well try your own, right? Now, coming up, you guys, you're getting ready to chew in 2 more days. In just 2 more days, you are getting ready to chew, right? We're going to be incorporating soups and salads. We're only going to be using raw vegetables for our soups, and we're going to make them in our high-speed blender or in your blender. You're going to make sure that you blend them up very well. If you have a high-speed blender, it'll actually heat it up, and it'll heat it up to the point where it will have a little steam on it and still be considered raw, because it doesn't get to a temperature where it destroys the natural enzymatic activity of the food. That's why we're doing these things raw. Now, there is controversy about that, whether these raw foods have enzymes that actually help to digest better. But I am of the school of thought, this is not proven through research, but I am of the school of thought that raw vegetables have their own enzymes inside, and we know that they have their own enzymes with them. And so when you eat them raw, they almost digest themselves, so that your body has an opportunity to fight disease. You have enzymes in your body, and they do different things. Some of them are fighting diseases. And when you have to use enzymes, you have to use the energy to help to digest the food. You have less energy to use for fighting off disease. So we're using these raw vegetables because they are almost digesting themselves. They require very little energy from your body to digest. And so when you make your soups in a high-speed blender using raw materials, then you can still keep that enzymatic activity going and still get a little heat in your food. So we're starting to get a little bit. I know you're excited. So I am too, because I'm ready to chew just like you are. Homemade dressings only. We have very nice recipes in there to make your homemade salad dressings for your salads. Or you can use lemon or balsamic dressing on them. I also just want to give a shout out to the participants of the video project. We're going to be working on that, our of course version. Woo-hoo! We're going to say, of course, I'm faith building, or of course, I'm detoxing. That is why. And so I'm so happy that you guys have participated in it. I can't wait to see the finished product. And I'm glad to see you guys here because we're on the same page. We believe that health is the new currency, and I'm glad we're spending it wisely. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.